Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Q3 2019 webinar by DataON. Thank you for attending, and good evening to a lot of people from the Europe that's joining our webinar. Today we have a very great set of speakers that will be sharing their experience with you and their solution as well. So without further ado, let me continue with this introduction. So today we have Rob Heineman from Microsoft, who is joining us to talk about Windows Server 19 and Azure Stack HCI and the upgrade cycle to 19. We have Balaji from Intel, who will share his Intel and their roadmap about Intel Select and how a validated solution is really valuable to a customer developing a complete solution. And we have Bill Webster from Florida Polytech here as well, who will share his experience on his transition to a Microsoft-based solution, HCI, and how he was able to successfully upgrade from a 2016 to 2019 environment. I'm Howard, and I'll be wrapping up and kind of share with you some of the technology that DataON is offering in this arena as well. Some housekeeping items. From a social media perspective, most people are on social media, so if you need to reach people, feel free to look at the hashtag for Windows servers and DataON hashtag as well. There is a chat room for questions, so if you have any questions, feel free to enter into the chat windows, and we'll try to answer these questions throughout the presentation. If you could mute during the webinar so we can make sure we have a good audio throughout the process. So to get started, I will kick it off. I won't everything up, then I'll pass it over to Rob. I think there's a lot of industry continue to change, technology evolutions, and I think I share this slide every time during the webinar and update this slide to show the key trends and drivers that we're seeing in the marketplace from the perspective of DataON and the market we address. Clearly, one of the big trends in the marketplace is really hybrid cloud. I think the definition of hybrid cloud and how hybrid cloud is changing how our customer deploying solution is really a key driver that many customers are really adopting. And hybrid cloud really address the fact that you have an environment where you could take advantage of on-premise infrastructure plus a hybrid infrastructure for services like Microsoft Azure. In that process, deploying the hybrid cloud, you still have an on-premise solution, and that's how hyper-convergence has really become one of the main driver of on-premise scale-out software-defined solution. And clearly, in that process, hyper-convergence and hyper-converged infrastructure, we're seeing a massive adoption. Some of the latest data we've seen is that there's a forecast of 54% deployment in the next 12 to 18 months for enterprise customer looking to deploy HCI. And just Microsoft alone, the latest number that Microsoft shared, they now have over 25K installation of this HCI environment based on Windows, which is pretty incredible for the amount of time that this technology has been introduced. As we continue to look at a hybrid cloud environment, we're also cognizant of the computing aspect of the infrastructure, new generation of processor, new technology to allow you to have edge computing and AI. These are integration and technology that we continue to be mindful of and put it into our solution. And as changes happen in the storage industry, as people continue to move more to flash, especially NVMe, Optane for cache, persistent memory, all these are drivers of storage that's taking the infrastructure to the bleeding edge, right? So these are really great opportunity for customers to take advantage of these technology changes. Lastly, management, ability to have a single console to manage your infrastructure, like the Windows Admin Center, is very critical, and company continue to take advantage of that as part of the continued hybrid integration. So without further ado, I will pass the baton to Rob, and he'll tell you about the solution. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, Howard. My name is Rob Heineman, and I'm a program manager on the Windows Server team. I have a lot of areas that I focus on, but primarily I focus on cluster. I've got two areas that are very relevant here. One is cluster OS rolling upgrade, and the other one is in-place upgrade for Windows Server. So So what I'll do, I'll be talking fairly broadly today about the approach that we use here. So basically, we want to guide you to be successful when it comes to upgrading your Azure Stack HCI appliances. Now we think about, so let's talk about terminology really briefly. You can see that there's two topologies in this diagram. On the left-hand side, we have the disaggregated, also known as converged topology. This is where we have two separate clusters, one for storage and one for compute. On the right-hand side, you can see there's a hyper-converged infrastructure topology. It's basically where the two clusters on the left side have been compressed, just pushed into one single layer. And this is we call this hyper-converged infrastructure. So basically, you've got storage and compute, in other words, storage and virtualization, all running together on the same cluster. Feedback from customers is that they really like this approach because it's it's easier to manage, right? It's fewer machines, and it's basically higher density and lower cost. So a lot of our customers are really enjoying the Azure Stack HCI solutions. And it's important to understand also that Azure Stack HCI, it's based on a storage technology that we call Storage Spaces Direct, or S2D. So sometimes you'll hear me just use those two terms interchangeably, but let's talk about how we upgrade these things. So and actually we'll talk a little bit about Storage Spaces Direct. I work a lot with the SQL Server team, but also we work with Hyper-V too, and there's a huge advantage when it comes to this storage topology. The advantage being that it's all Ethernet based, and when you can leverage RDMA technology, then you can really move a lot of data and between machines, and so you can keep sort of redundant copies of your data around, and it's a great idea. It's a great thing. It really reduces cost. We developed S2D in order to make sure that we had a good competitive story with the VMware vSAN and Nutanix, and we're very happy with the Storage Spaces Direct. We think it's proving to be a very good approach, and as far as we know, we have a lot of customers who are very happy with this. So let's talk a little bit about another great thing about Storage Spaces Direct is that it's 100% software, so it will run everywhere. It runs fastest on premises, of course. But it'll run virtual. And so it's a very interesting solution, and in the fact because it runs everywhere, and we're seeing a lot of customers look at that. Okay, so let's talk about upgrade. So before, I'm assuming that everyone is going to be familiar with the Azure Stack HCI, and if you're not, then you should go and look at the Azure Stack HCI documentation. On the front page, there's some fantastic videos and diagrams, and there's just a great there's some really good material here on the Azure Stack itself. So it's really good. Just a quick note that before you upgrade a system, you should always back up your data. So, all right, and then next, I want to also show you the Storage Spaces Direct documentation. So the Storage Spaces Direct documentation is here, and it's really quite thorough. You can find a lot of information on these within this collection of documents. And again, there's some excellent videos here that explain Storage Spaces Direct and explain the replication and resiliency settings for Storage Spaces Direct. So it's pretty good. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with that if you're not already familiar. Now, importantly, inside this documentation, inside the Storage Spaces Direct documentation, we have the guide that actually talks about how you upgrade a Storage Spaces Direct 2016 cluster to Storage Spaces Direct 2019 cluster. And so we have the upgrade steps right here. And we wrote this because based on feedback, we think between 40 and 50% of our customers are very interested in an in-place upgrade. So we've put that there. So please have a look at that. It's in the deployment section. All right. It's very important to read the prerequisites in the deployment section, or in that guide, in the upgrade guide, because mainly there's some constraints. Basically, we want these systems fully patched before they're upgraded. And also, the other thing that's important for us is we want you to note that there are a couple of features that aren't going to be present when you upgrade a system from 2016 to 2019. Most of our customers don't need these two features. They don't need the map log bypass, and they don't need compaction, but some of our customers do need them. Now, if you read through the documentation, you'll see there's this decision flow chart that looks like this. Essentially, you have to start with a Windows Server 2016 Storage Spaces Direct cluster. The first step is to check if you need the map log bypass and compaction features. If you do need them, then you can't really upgrade the cluster. If you need those features, you're going to need to build a fresh cluster and copy data over. But if you don't need those features, then you can successfully upgrade your Windows Server 2016 cluster to 2019. Then you just have two decisions you have to make. First of all, do you want to keep the VMs running? In other words, do you want to attempt a zero downtime upgrade of the cluster? And then the next question is, do you want to do an in-place upgrade, or do you want to do a clean OS install of each node in the cluster? So basically, based on your decisions, you'll wind up in one of these four paths. And today, I believe Bill will be talking about how you perform an in-place upgrade while the VMs are running. So Bill will talk about path A. That's my understanding. And I believe that's all I have to share with you today. I think I'm handing off to our good colleague Balaji Iyer of Intel.
Thank you, Rob. Yep, I'm here. Yeah, thank you, Rob, and hello, everybody. My name is Balaji Iyer. I work on the solution strategy with Intel Data Center Group. And today I'm here to talk about the Intel Select Solutions for Azure Stack HCI. So let's take a look at the Select Solution. So with the explosion of data, our data-centric strategy is relevant to every IT organization so they can get the most value out of their data. Now, we can only do that by leveraging all our assets and enabling our customers to move data faster, store more of their data, and process everything. So our answer to this challenge is Select Solutions, which makes it simpler for IT to choose and deploy infrastructure that takes advantage of Intel's latest network, storage, and compute products. And also, this is a reflection of our deep investment with industry leaders to deliver workload optimizations. So these configurations that form the Intel Select Solutions, they use the right Intel technology foundation, delivering pre-verified performance, and also leaves room for system differentiation with solution provider enhancements. The Select Solutions were first introduced in mid-2017, and we have seen incredible momentum with our partners, such as DataON, right, delivering Select Solution configurations to the market. and customers targeting select configurations to speed up their solution evaluation and deployment. There are currently over 60 verified partner solutions in the market today. Okay, so now that we set that stage, let's look at what are Intel Select solutions from a key value proposition standpoint, right? So basically, they are recipes for innovation around key industry workloads that are either new, emerging, complex, or foundational or established workloads that have a high degree of flexible configuration offering. So Select solutions are delivered as reference designs, jointly created and delivered by Intel and core ISV, OSV partners such as Microsoft for the relevant workload. So they represent premium configurations that showcase advanced software, hardware, and technologies that's available and provides a blueprint to integrate them together for a balance of performance, price performance, security, and any other factors that are relevant to the solution, right? So each Select solution is rigorously benchmarked against a published set of workload-specific performance criteria. And OEM and solution providers who can build and deliver to these configurations and performance criteria are verified by Intel, right? And they're authorized to offer the Intel Select Solutions brand. So when you see Select, right, you have a quality configuration with great value and high trust. The insights from our engineering of Intel Select Solution reference designs, they are shared with all of the Intel's broad ecosystem of hardware, software, and solution providers. So you have the end user basically has a tremendous choice of solution providers and hardware suppliers. So that means that the end user can purchase Select aligned or similar configuration from nearly all providers, even though it's not offered as a pre-verified solution through a program. Now, the end result here is that basically our end customers, business and IT leaders, you get a trusted solution that is ISV certified, OEM or partner validated, and Intel verified, right? So that helps you accelerate your time to market, time to innovation, and your time to transformation, basically, right? So moving on to the Intel Select solutions for Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. So as Rob was mentioning prior, right? So Azure Stack HCI is basically a rebranding of Windows Server 2019 configured on a minimum of 2 systems running Storage Spaces Direct. And Storage Spaces Direct is software-defined storage Microsoft first introduced with Windows Server 2016, right? So Intel has been deeply involved and invested in Azure Stack solution from day zero. So Intel's partnership with Microsoft, it extends beyond this solution. But the Azure Stack, specifically talking about Azure Stack solution, right? It's one major step, towards developing this partnership and breakthrough data center solution. So Intel and Microsoft collaborated to optimize Windows Server and Storage Spaces Direct for the second generation Intel Xeon scalable processor technologies, the SSDs and the Intel Optane DC persistent memory. And we have extended this co-engineering for Azure Stack integrated systems, right? So combining Microsoft software, Intel optimized hardware, and the Microsoft support and services into one hybrid cloud solution. And Intel will continue to partner with Microsoft to tune the Azure Stack HCI for our next generation hardware as well. So with the launch of the Select solutions, right, this partnership has risen to the next level, and Intel Select solutions are hardware and software stack optimized for specific workloads. And they are ready to deploy configurations So that means that we offer a fast path to data center transformation with workload optimized configurations that the customer can count on. So there's proven performance and the ability to scale by running it on the Intel Xeon scalable platform, right? So some of the use cases that you would see here are why would you want to, deploy Microsoft Azure Stack HCI, right? So one of the things is refreshing aging hardware, right? So you replace aging hardware with the latest generation of compute, storage, and networking built as a high-performance, highly available SDI model for the private cloud that also provides you with security and management not found in prior solutions, right? So that's one use case. The second one is consolidation of server infrastructure, right? So centralized control using Windows Admin Center, it allows for the HCI platform management and also move the workload into more nimble virtualization models, right, to reduce downtime and provide hybrid cloud functions. And the other use case, the third use case is, you can connect to cloud management, like you take, for example, everyday activities and simplifying them in the cloud services such as Azure Site Recovery or Azure Backup, Azure Update Management, and more, right? Now, if you look at the, the upgrade use case that we discussed, right? So we talked about refreshing aging hardware use case previously. So if you look at, for example, in this example, we are showing what you would get if you upgrade from an 8-year-old server, say running Windows Server 2008 R2 versus a second-generation Intel Xeon scalable platform running Windows Server 2019, right? So on the compute side, you'll get 7x the number of cores, right? So that's a tremendous improvement of compute resources, right? That you can use, and not to mention some of the features, the processor level features, that is available to accelerate your compute intensive workloads with AVX 512 and AES-NI and instruction sets like that, right? On the memory side, you are able to get 18x more memory, right? That's a significant improvement in the memory density, especially with the Intel Optane DC persistent memory. On the storage side, the hyper-converged infrastructure is supporting up to 4 petabytes, right? And so that's a very important consideration for an HCI solution, right? On the networking side, you can get up to 10x faster networking with integrated Ethernet and RDMA, right? So all of these things you stand to lose if you actually don't upgrade. Is the point here, right? So whenever there's an aging hardware or aging infrastructure upgrade, there's a tremendous amount of benefit from additional resources that you get at the platform level. All right. So then we also talked about the consolidation of servers. So consolidation of server infrastructure, it naturally leads to reduced infrastructure and operating costs. So that's a no-brainer. You all are probably already familiar with that. And so it significantly reduces the time it takes to provision new servers. You get centralized control, for example, using Windows Admin Center that allows for HCI platform management, right? So consolidation is kind of one of the key benefits that you will get by using a hyper-converged infrastructure. Okay. All right. So now I just wanted to touch upon some of the key benefits in terms of results that we have obtained from the Intel Select solution work that we have done on Azure Stack HCI. So on this one, this is a consolidation upgrade, right? So we are comparing a baseline system with 384 gig DDR4 DRAM with a system that is using Intel Optane DC persistent memory And both systems are, using the Gold 6230 processors, right? Now, some of the pain points that you're trying to solve is, you need to, scale performance for low latency workloads, and you need to reduce cost per VM, do more for less, basically, right? So when you look at some of the results, like, for example, adding more memory with Intel Optane DC persistent memory, it gives the consumer an additional 33% memory capacity at the same relative cost to a single-tier DDR4 model, right? So that's a pretty significant, improvement there. And then memory mode, it allows for DDR4 memory mode of operation of the Intel DC persistent memory. It allows for to act as a cache for the Optane DC PMM. And so in this scenario, we are using like a 2.7 to 1 ratio for Optane DC persistent memory to DDR4. And this allows for more work to be performed as long as the process have headroom to compute at the increased workload. So we are seeing up to 36% more VMs at similar system cost and 27% lower cost per VM, right? So that's pretty cool. Then there was one more set of results that we wanted to showcase is what happens when you do a performance upgrade, right? So in this scenario, we compared a baseline system with Xeon Gold 6230 processor and 384 GB DDR4 DRAM with another scenario or another system that used 6252 Xeon Gold processor, and that use Intel Optane DC persistent memory running in dual mode. So it will be running in the memory mode as well as the app direct mode, right? So as you can see in this particular case, we see about a 76% increase in the IOPS due to faster caching layer with the Optane DC persistent memory, right? That is a significant improvement in performance. And we also got up to 40% more VMs at reduced relative cost, right? So it's a significant improvement in your TCO when you're using the latest and greatest technologies that we are offering on as part of this Intel Select Solutions based on the Xeon Scalable platform, right? So the message here is Intel Select Solutions for Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. It offers it's a set of premium configurations that are optimized for that workload and it's been benchmarked and verified by Intel. So it's ISV certified, so that's Microsoft certified, and it's partner validated. So in this case, DataON has validated this, Select Solutions, and it's Intel verified. So together, they should give you the IT leaders and the business entities that are wanting to deploy these solutions a sense of quality and a sense of trust. Okay, I think that was pretty much what I wanted to cover. And at this point, I would like to hand it over to our colleague, Mr. Bill Webster from Florida Poly.
Thanks, Balaji. So my name is Bill Webster at Florida Polytechnic University, and I'm going to talk about the process that we went through in journey with our Storage Spaces Direct cluster. So there's a little bit about Florida Poly. I won't touch on that too much. We're a new small university in Florida. We've been around for about 4 to 5 years. So we find ourselves in a position where we're still building some of our infrastructure out. So in this particular case, we were building out a new DR data center, and we wanted a solution that was cost-effective and could easily be scaled out. So given my prior interest in Storage Spaces Direct and my experience with DataON and the level of support they provide, we decided to deploy one of DataON's 2-node HCI clusters, and we did that back in June of 2018. Then, of course, after Ignite back in the fall, I was excited to get some of that new functionality and features that were coming with 2019. So I started conversations with the folks at DataON to see about two things, both upgrading that cluster to Windows Server 2019 and also expanding that out so that we would have more capacity. So as you can see on the timeline here, we started that with the upgrade in April of this year, and then in June we added the third node and additional storage. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk through the process that I went through for both of those steps. As Rob mentioned before, I mean, there's some really great documentation that Microsoft has out there for upgrading a storage spaces direct cluster. These are, on his decision tree, these are the 4 buckets that you could end up in, where you're doing an in-place upgrade with the VMs running or clean OS install, or likewise with the VM shutdown. As I looked over those and looked at our environment, I decided that this top option, the in-place upgrade, was the best choice for us, both in terms of speed to get that going and also what I felt like the risk factors. So on this slide, this is an overview of what our infrastructure looked like when we began. So we had the 2 server nodes that were running Windows 2016, and we had those connected up to 40 gig Mellanox switch for the storage and replication traffic. And then on the blue lines, those are the networking for our VMs. And then on top of those 2 nodes, we had the storage pool that was built across drives in both nodes. And in the storage pool, we created 2 volumes so we could have one kind of active on each node. And since it's just a 2-node cluster, we created those as 2A mirrors. And then, of course, we had the VMs running on those, running in the compute space on those nodes on top of that storage. So over here on the right, these are kind of a summary of the steps that I went through, and I'm going to jump down through those pretty quick. As I go through those, when there's cases where I had like PowerShell commands that I ran, I'm going to include those at the bottom of the slides just as a reference so you can see how simple the process is. So the very first thing that I had to do to the cluster was apply the OS updates, make sure that I was running the latest version of Windows Server 2016 with cluster-aware updating. That was really pretty simple. Anybody who's familiar with running that or with a storage spaces direct cluster already, that's pretty easy. So once I had all of the updates on, this is kind of optional, but I like to explicitly migrate everything off that I can. So I opened up Failover Cluster Manager, did a live migration to move all of the VMs from Node 2 off to Node 1, and then I also moved the storage owner over to, for Volume 2, over to Node 1. So there's a command listed here at the bottom when you're dealing with set switches, so that's switch embedded teaming. The documentation notes that you need to disable live migration checks, so I just ran that command. It's pretty easy. Then I ran my suspend cluster node, so any roles that might have still been on Node 2 would have been migrated off at that point. And again, you can do that in Cluster Manager or simple PowerShell command down there at the bottom. So the next step I did was I placed that server in storage maintenance, and then it was all ready to start hacking away on it. So I mounted up the Windows Server 2019 ISO, ran my setup.exe, and did a upgrade install. Chose the option to keep all of my settings and files. So, I mean, it kept all of the network settings, all of the Windows features, kept the join to the cluster, join to the domain, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. Couple reboots later, you know, after I had Windows Server on there, or Windows Server 2019, then I did my driver updates, and then I applied the latest Windows Server updates, which for me, I can't stress how important that is. I actually ran into a minor issue where I was seeing high memory utilization, and it just so happened that that was fixed within a few weeks in the following Windows Server 2019 quality update. So as long as you today are going through this process and you make sure to get your system updated, I mean, that's at least one problem I know of that you wouldn't run into. So once the updates are all done, then basically you want to back out the other changes you made. So remove that storage or that node from storage maintenance and wait for the storage repair jobs to finish. So down here, I've got the command to list those out, the get storage job. And for me, with our workload, I want to say that took about 45 minutes or so for all of the data that had been changed on node 1 to get synced over to node 2 while I was doing the upgrade. And then once that's all done, you just migrate all those VMs and roles back and repeat that same process on node 1. And then at that point, where you've got both server nodes upgraded to Windows 2019, I redistributed the volumes and the virtual machines, and then there's just a few steps to run and make sure you get all of that additional functionality. So upgrade the cluster functional level and upgrade the storage pool. And then I also ran this command down here, the third one that I have listed at the bottom. And what that let me do was change my default settings for the mirror volume type, where when I created new volumes, it would create those. Oh no, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll come back to that. So once you're done with that, then just run the test cluster, and like you would when you're setting up a whole new cluster, you just want to run that and make sure that you don't get any new warnings or errors that you need to address. So then the next step in that process, once I had those both upgraded to Windows 2019, I reached out to DataON about getting another node, and we actually purchased additional drives to expand out the capacity in our existing nodes, and then we added a third node that would give us more compute capacity and better resilience. So, and the final step once I had that in place was to migrate from our two-way mirror volumes to three-way mirror. So just to recap, this is where I started with after I had everything upgraded to Windows Server 2019. So I've got my two nodes with the two-way mirror volumes and the VMs running on top of those. And the very first thing we did was we popped in the additional drives that we purchased, and those were automatically claimed by Storage Spaces Direct and added into the storage pool, so I didn't have to do anything special to get those going. And then we added in the third node. So once we got that all racked and cabled up, there was a little bit of prep work to configure networking on the server and join it to the domain. And then from that point, I just ran the test cluster, again, like you would if you were setting up a new cluster, and specified all three nodes so that I could run those checks and look at storage, networking, OS patch levels, all of that good stuff. And when that came back and confirmed that I was in a good place, I went ahead and did the add cluster node command. And at that point, I had then switched that over to a 3-node cluster. And here's where I was mentioning earlier that I ran this command to change my mirror volume so that future volumes would be created as a 3-way mirror instead of 2 by default. And so once I had that done, then as you can see here, I created a third volume as a 3-way mirror. So that was across all nodes, which gave me much better resiliency when it comes to server and disk failures. And once I had volume 3 created, I migrated all of the VMs that were on volume 2 over to volume 3. And for that, I just went into failover cluster manager and did a storage migration. So that was migrating those 2 new storage while the VMs were up and running. So there was no downtime incurred there either. And once I was done, had all the VMs moved over, then I removed volume 2 and recreated that as a 3-way mirror. So at that point, it was just a matter of shuffling things around a bit and basically, as I said, recreated volume 2 as a three-way mirror, moved the VMs from volume 1 over to volume 2, then deleted volume 1, recreated it as a three-way mirror, and then I redistributed my VMs where I had a little bit better balance. My final end state then was that I had my 3 nodes with 3 volumes in the storage pool that were each three-way mirrors and VMs running on all of those. And through both of these processes, both the in-place upgrade from 2016 to 2019 and the storage migration, I did all of those with live VMs, so I never had to shut those down and incur any downtime. So with that, I will pass it back to Howard.
Bill, you have no idea how amazed I am, even though we do this on a daily basis, to do this with live VM, migrate, update 2 nodes to 19, update the disk, add another node, convert from a two-way mirror, join the cluster, convert from two-way mirror to three-way mirror, then now you have three-way mirror, 3 nodes on the same switch. Is that what, that's what you did, right, essentially?
Yeah, and I mean, it was all really pretty easy. So, I mean, hats off to
I guess that was the second question.
Microsoft.
Were you scared at any this point in time that entire VM crashes and you're out of commission?
Well, these, not too much. I mean, obviously there's some concern over that at any time, but this was, so since this was at our DR data center, I was a little less concerned about that. I mean, we had some active systems over there, like domain controller that was actively used and file server that was part of a DFSR cluster. So,
great.
Yeah,
Wow.
It wouldn't have been fun if I lost any of those VMs, but I felt pretty confident.
Yeah, one of the last thing before I jump into the slides is, did you do a lot of planning and thinking about this topic and to make sure that you're comfortable with it before you really jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there wasn't, I mean, I didn't have a test lab where I can run through it, where I'd like to do that in most scenarios if possible. But reading through, I mean, I went through the documentation that Rob had mentioned earlier, and I had in my slides too. And I mean, that was really fantastically laid out and covered all the steps. And then, of course, talking to the guys at DataON, Howard and his colleagues, gave me a much better sense of confidence that everything would go smoothly. So I felt good that I had them to fall back on if I had any problems.
Got it. Okay. Let me run to some slides and we can open for some more questions here, the audience. I think what we have learned, number one, is clearly Microsoft with Rob has a very clear documentation and content to help audience like yourself and others to have a 2016 cluster and to take advantage of all the benefits of Azure Stack HCI, which is running 2019 Windows Server, and ability to do an in-place upgrade while you're live migration. So documentation is quite complete, and DataON has done this many times, and that's why we felt that was really good for Rob to share that documentation. And second, I think is also very important, you know, for having Intel to share their thought process on Intel Select, right? Intel Select is a foundational architecture that Intel really put a lot of effort on to validate, to make sure the workload that they have tested are optimized. And DataON absolutely fully embrace the whole entire process, and we work closely with Intel to make sure that all our solutions are Intel Select certified and validated for Azure Stack HCI and other workloads. Lastly, I think it's very important. You know, you have a web use case today that on our website that tells about the story that Bill did, upgrading from a Windows 16 HCI cluster to Azure Stack HCI 19, and really it's a real life example how a customer did a lot of testing, right? A lot of questions, but really planned out the upgrade process quite straight. I'm sure there are complexity in many other clusters. Every single cluster is different, but I think having the right plan and make sure that documentation is very clear, this process is very much a doable process, which many of our customers do today. Okay. From a DataON perspective, thank you. This is Howard, and we continue to deliver solution based on Microsoft Azure Stack HCI and working with Intel Select. And really, our business is really helping our customer and IT infrastructure really be in modernizing infrastructure for today's hybrid cloud. Without other people who doesn't know DataON, we've been around for about 30 years, and we're really exclusive Microsoft focused. We have validated solution across the Microsoft architecture and Intel Select, but at the same time, we also help customer deliver the complete solution experience, both on-premise for hybrid services and really other DR and backup solution. And we do have a solution extension to the Windows Admin Center called Must that we leverage for monitoring and other key activities. As a customer and also as a partner who made the Microsoft choice, we have done a lot of integration, we have done a lot of deployment with our customer base, and since then we have over 650 unique customer deployment, and we have now deployed over 150 petabytes of storage running Windows Server and also Azure Stack HCI. So we do have a lot of experience. But as a totality, DataON really delivers that enterprise level solution services to deliver a complete hybrid cloud computing infrastructure. And that solution really incorporates, number one, a on-premise hyper-converged infrastructure running Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. We also deliver business continuity with a lot of backup solution and DR solution that we design with our customer to make sure there's a continuous business continuity with our solution. At the same time, leveraging the cloud, right? Microsoft Azure is an incredible cloud infrastructure, which is seamlessly could be integrated into your on-premise HCI with the Windows Admin Center, and we do that with our customer to make sure we have the know-how and knowledge to work with our customer. Lastly, delivering that professional services and support to help our customers so they have a peace of mind. So when Bill has the upgrade, he could come to DataON for that advice, and we could work with our colleagues and our partner like Microsoft to deliver that service and make sure that for the next 3 to 5 years we support our customer with infrastructure monitoring. As you know, which is repeated earlier, our solutions are always on the bleeding edge because Microsoft allows you to have the latest technology, and all our solution innovation are based on Intel architecture, whether or not it's a second generation processor, whether or not it's all the NVMe with Optane for cache, or RDMA for 25, 50, 100 gig network. Our solution, HCI solution, really take advantage of the leading edge and make sure everything is seamlessly integrated to deliver that experience and workload that customer wants. Must is a key ingredient of our software to make sure that in addition to provide you visibility and monitoring into your infrastructure, we also provide alert services with an email and other alerts so you can really proactively monitor your solution in a single pane of glass and a single GUI interface. Today, if you visit our website when you get a chance, you will see all our hybrid cloud solution based on Azure Stack HCI with different form factor, different workloads, different category of performance, all-flash and hybrid solution. So please do review our website and make sure you have all the solution in place to make sure that you can engage with our people and our salespeople to design the right solution for you. I want to share a very traditional solution that we've been really designing to replace a lot of enterprise SAN today for consolidation and really a infrastructure upgrade and refresh, where you could design a hybrid solution with 2 to 16 nodes scalability based on Azure Stack HCI. You could really develop a very balanced and capacity optimized hyper-converged infrastructure. And with our 212 solution, HCI, you could really mix-match a cache capability with NVMe plus any type of flash for capacity and hard drive, where really you have a very balanced solution that you could run your entire workload in a single cluster HCI. And a sample cluster to run over 1 million, 1.5 million IOPS, and deliver over 100 terabyte usable capacity with 3 mirror for maximum resiliency. So you could see the ability to really design the right solution for you as a customer based on your workload. As a summary, I think number one is, DataON continue to drive innovation with our customers, and Microsoft Intel is a key partner of ours to make that solution. We have many choices for you to look at a solution to make sure these solutions are right for you, and our job is to make sure we architect that solution for you. But ultimately, DataON is someone you can rely on for that single point of contact to make sure that you can engage with us to provide that entire monitoring support capability, and we have the software must to help that make it happen. To wrap it up, I think there's a couple questions I may want to use. There was a questioning here, Rob, I'm not sure if you can answer, I think it's very general. It says, is there any relevance to containers? I think with Azure Stack HCI or 19, there's a lot of container technology that's relevant, correct?
Correct. And also, since many of our customers choose to run containers within a VM, and since the Azure Stack HCI workloads are optimized for VMs, both Windows VMs and also Linux VMs on Hyper-V, then yes, containers it's a natural fit.
Got it. Balaji, I think a question a lot of our customers always ask is, as Intel continue to invest in the select solutions, what type of top 3 advantage do you see for someone choosing an Intel select solution versus other solutions?
Yeah, so that's a question that we encounter a lot, Howard. And basically, if there are 3 things that they want to remember, right? One is that it is it is pre-validated and tested by Intel working with the ISV, such as Microsoft in this case, right? So, you get the fine-tuning of the software and the underlying, hardware components, right, all into one single, solution set, if you will, right? And then with that, you establish a minimum level of performance criteria, performance benchmark, which if somebody would want to just take that and replicate it, they would at least expect that level of performance, and they can add more to it in order to be able to differentiate, right? So it's basically it offers the ability to take a pre-configured system that is verified and established with to a certain performance benchmarking criteria, right? So it's easier to deploy, and it removes a lot of the guesswork, right, from the equation. So imagine the problems that an IT decision maker goes through, right, as to what type of infrastructure is needed and is the right size, and is it just for a point solution, or can it be repurposed for a... So there are a lot of these questions that are in the minds of IT decision makers, and the Intel Select solution kind of gives that ability to give them a point of reference where they can say, yes, if I do this, if I just take this recipe or take the solution, then I know that I will get this level of performance for this particular workload that I'm focused on, type thing, right? So that's basically the value add that Intel Select solutions provide.
Thank you, Balaji. As a wrap, Bill, what are some of the word of advice for audience out there that's watching the webinar and going to watch it later, that you will give as some of the stuff to watch out for as they look to upgrade? What are the top 3 advice that you would give?
Top 3, I mean, I'd say certainly go out and read through all of the documentation there.
Yep.
I mean, it's really complete and well done. Next would probably be reach out to your vendor, like I did with DataON, certainly. Make sure you got drivers that you need and all that stuff. And I guess for third, I'll say, as Rob mentioned, make sure you have backups or some type of rollback plan in case things do go sideways.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Balaji, and thank you, Bill, for attending and supporting this webinar. It's been a great content and presentation for our audience, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the future. And this ends our presentation, and thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.